You know, self-sabotage is actually a lot like constantly walking on a broken ankle.
Oh, yeah, because you're just too afraid to sit still.
Exactly. You're too afraid to sit still and just let the bones set. So you keep limping along day after day, and you just kind of get used to that dull, radiating pain.
Right, it just becomes your normal.
Yeah, you mask a wince with a smile and you pretend you are perfectly fine. But, underneath the surface, your very foundation is just completely fractured.
You end up adjusting your entire life around the injury instead of just treating it.
You really do.
Yeah.
Well, in this deep dive, we are finally taking the weight off that ankle. We are so glad you are here with us today because we are unpacking the subconscious ways we sabotage our own happiness. And I mean, more importantly, how to build a life where protecting your own heart becomes absolutely non-negotiable.
I love that. And, the stakes for doing this kind of internal repair work have genuinely never been higher.
They really haven't.
We are currently living in this era of relentless information overload. I mean, we are subjected to a 247 cycle of curated comparison.
Oh, the highlight reels.
Exactly. You can watch everyone else's highlight reels while you are just sitting alone with your own behind-the-scenes struggles.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. And in the middle of all that chaotic noise, losing sight of your authentic self isn't just like a possibility. It is the default outcome if you aren't paying close attention.
It really is.
So our mission today is to cut through that noise and extract the precise, practical tools you need to navigate the chaos and firmly protect your peace.
And to do that, we are diving into a really raw, profound text from Meggan Roxanne.
Yes.
For context, you might know her as the founder of that wildly popular platform At the Good Quote.
A huge platform.
Massive. And her work, How to Stop Breaking Your Own Heart, it serves as a roadmap for healing from profound trauma, setting unbreakable boundaries, and finding a version of self-love that actually lasts.
It really is this powerful excavation of the self.
It is. But to understand how to heal a broken heart, we first have to examine how it gets broken in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
And surprisingly, that breaking process usually starts long before we even have a conscious say in the matter.
Yeah, because our earliest environment forms the fundamental blueprint for how we understand love, safety, and our own worth.
Right.
I mean, a child's brain is highly plastic and entirely dependent on their caregivers. Family is a biological first community.
It's all they know.
Exactly. Evolutionarily, caregivers are expected to offer unconditional protection. But if that original blueprint is flawed, if the protection is conditional or just absent a child, doesn't just logically brush it off.
No, they internalize it.
Right. The nervous system internalizes a deeply damaging message, which is that love is not a guarantee and survival requires constant adaptation. We end up spending decades building our adult lives on top of that cracked foundation.
And you see those cracks form immediately in Megan's story. She shares this devastating core memory from when she was just 4 years old.
Oh, this part is so heavy.
It really is. It's her first week of school. She's little, and her mom can't pick her up, so her grandfather, Freddie, comes to collect her instead.
Right.
She's a kid. She's bubbling over with excitement, trying to tell him all about her day. And he just looks down at her with this heavy Trinidadian accent and says, I do care about that. I do love you. Hush your mouth and go wait for your Muda.
At 4 years old.
At 4.
Yeah.
Having an authority figure casually dismiss your existence like that, I mean, it leaves an indelible mark.
Oh, the psychological ripple effect of that early dismissal is just profound.
Mm-hmm.
When a young child is denied basic affection, it creates a void.
A massive void.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the child immediately starts developing strategies to fill it.
Like trying to earn the love root.
Exactly. They begin scanning their environment, trying to figure out what they need to do or who they need to be to earn the affection that should have just been freely given to them.
Right.
This completely sets the stage for a lifetime of chronic people-pleasing. You become hypervigilant, constantly seeking external validation because you completely lack that internal security that comes from being unconditionally loved.
And that void was only widened by her father's complete absence. I mean, she literally never met the man until she watched his funeral on YouTube years later.
Wow.
Yeah, and all of that compounded rejection, it just manifested as pure anger. She acted out in primary school, basically becoming the class bully, terrorizing the kids who had the security and material things she lacked.
Which is such a common trauma response.
Totally. And the anger escalated until she was just completely excluded from school.
Right, and that exclusion forces her mother to change tactics, right?
Mm-hmm.
She moves her to Sacred Heart, which is a strict Catholic school.
Yes, but the internal chaos hasn't been resolved, so, The acting out continues in a new environment. She actually sneaks into a cupboard at the new school and eats all the Holy Communion wafers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because she genuinely thought they were just crackers.
I mean, that's hilarious, but also shows she's just totally out of her element.
Exactly. And at this point, her mom realizes that punishments and strict environments just aren't fixing the behavior. So she pivots to an incentive structure.
Right. The bribe.
Yeah, she tells Meggan, look, behave well, get a good report, and there's a surprise. And Meggan manages to flip a switch. She suppresses all that anger, gets a glowing report, and her mom rewards her with tickets to see Michael Jackson at Wembley Stadium.
Which, I mean, well, that is a deeply loving gesture from a mother desperate to help her child succeed. We have to look at how a child's brain processes that exact transaction.
Right. What is the lesson she's actually learning?
Exactly. The child learns a very specific formula. She learns that suppressing my true, chaotic emotions and performing goodness results in love, safety, and incredible rewards.
So she didn't actually learn how to process her anger.
No, not at all. She learned how to be an actress. She learned that love and reward are strictly conditional on performance. And this right here is the exact seed of perfectionism.
Wow.
Perfectionism isn't about a healthy drive to be flawless. It is a trauma response. It is built on the deep-seated, terrifying belief that you must attain an impossible standard just to be worthy of taking up space.
But, I want to push back on how society treats this, though.
Please do.
Because we constantly glorify the grind and, hustle culture. We praise people for being perfectionists. We frame it as a supreme work ethic.
Oh, constantly. It's on every resume.
Right. But treating perfectionism as a virtue feels like trying to pay off a mortgage with a currency that constantly devalues.
That is a great way to put it.
You can work 100 hours a week, you can hit every milestone, but the internal standard of perfect inflates so fast you are always mathematically bankrupt. You never actually win.
No.
You just run on the treadmill until you completely collapse from exhaustion.
And the treadmill is a completely artificial human construct. If you look at the natural world, the universe is a living testament to the absolute beauty of imperfection.
Right. Nature isn't perfect.
Exactly. Trees grow to wildly different heights in the same forest. Some trunks are jagged and crooked, others are straight. Water isn't perfectly still. It crashes violently against uneven rocks.
Yeah.
We look at nature's anomalies and we marvel at their uniqueness. Yet, as humans, we hold ourselves to this rigid, manufactured, industrial standard of flawlessness that doesn't exist anywhere in the real world. We literally punish ourselves for simply being natural.
And when we inevitably fail to achieve that unattainable industrial standard of perfection, this panic sets in. We realize we are exposed.
Right.
So we either build a fake shield to protect ourselves, which we call the ego, or we hide away in what we call our comfort zones. And Meggan's path in her early 20s illustrates this pendulum swing brilliantly.
It really does.
First, she drops out of university, crashing into a severe 6-month depression. But eventually, she finds an unexpected grounding purpose working in a prison. She's actively helping inmates, giving them daily affirmations, and even getting one inmate to braid his hair so he can present himself with dignity to his grandmother during visits. I mean, it was just raw human work.
And it grounded her because it was deeply connected to her authentic self. She was using her profound empathy to help people who were cast aside.
Much like she felt cast aside as a child.
Exactly. She was operating from a place of genuine connection. But operating from a place of vulnerability is exhausting when you haven't healed your core wounds.
Oh, totally.
So the pendulum inevitably swings to the absolute opposite extreme to protect her.
And it's a massive swing. She starts a Tumblr account and suddenly blows up by posting positive hip-hop lyrics. Yeah. She parlays that into an online store selling cool story bro merchandise.
I remember those shirts.
Right. Everyone had one. And in the span of just 3 weeks, she makes her mother's entire yearly salary.
That is insane.
Picture her sitting in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by stacks of printed PayPal invoices taller than a can of Red Bull. But this sudden, overwhelming wealth completely feeds her ego monster. She becomes conceited, she loses empathy for people working regular 9-to-5 jobs, and she becomes totally disconnected from the reality she just came from.
Because the ego is merely a psychological bodyguard.
A bodyguard, right?
Yeah, and its primary job is to mask our deepest fears. When she achieved sudden financial success, her ego inflated rapidly to protect her from her underlying insecurities about worth and abandonment.
That makes so much sense.
We feed this ego with modern distractions, Endless scrolling, rampant consumerism, obsessing over online metrics. We use these things as a fortress to avoid self-confrontation.
Yeah, to just numb out.
Her ego successfully convinced her that her new material wealth made her fundamentally superior to others. And this is just a classic defense mechanism against the quiet, lingering fear that she still wasn't enough.
And it took a brutal collision with reality to dismantle that fortress. Her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Yeah, which forced Meggan to instantly drop the superficial distractions, drop the ego trips, and just become a full-time carer. But right before that reset, she was completely trapped in what we casually refer to as the comfort zone.
Right.
I struggle with that phrase, though. Like, why do we insist on calling it a comfort zone when staying in it actually makes us miserable, stagnant, and disconnected?
It's so true.
Shouldn't we just call it the stagnation zone? It's not comfortable at all. It's a trap.
The terminology is incredibly misleading. The comfort zone is rarely comfortable. It is simply familiar.
Familiar, yes.
We choose to stay in the stagnation zone not because it brings us joy or fulfillment, but because it shields us from the terrifying fear of the unknown.
Right.
Stepping out of that familiar space requires confronting the very real possibility of failure.
Yeah.
And when your ego is fragile, when your self-worth is entirely tied up in a manufactured image of success, failure doesn't just feel like a setback, it feels like total annihilation of the self.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So you choose the familiar misery over the risk of destruction.
So, if the ego is our fake armor and the stagnation zone is our hiding place, what happens when real tragedy comes along and shatters both completely?
Everything falls apart.
Completely. Meggan experienced grief on a scale that most people can't even fathom. She and her mother were in St. Lucia during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic when her mother's cancer returned with aggressive force.
Just the worst possible timing.
And her mother tragically passed away there. Because of global travel restrictions, Meggan was stranded in the Caribbean.
Oh my God.
Yeah, completely disconnected from her support system, trying to navigate the complex, harrowing logistics of getting her mother's body back to Trinidad for burial. She ends up living next to a rough area, a ghetto in Marabella, dealing with crushing depression and active suicidal ideation. The armor was completely gone.
Tragedy of that magnitude strips away every defense mechanism you have ever built.
Yeah.
It leaves you entirely exposed.
Yeah.
And this points to the intense danger of hyper-independence. For years, Meggan had operated under the belief that she had to be the savior. She had to be the strong one who never needed anyone else, whether that was through her ego on Tumblr or her caregiving.
And society rewards that.
Deeply. Society deeply conflates this kind of hyper-independence with strength. We praise people who, quote unquote, don't need anyone.
Right.
In reality, hyper-independence is an extreme trauma response. It is a biological reaction from a nervous system that learned early on that relying on others usually leads to abandonment.
But she had hit a wall where she simply couldn't survive alone anymore, and the intervention she needed came from the most unexpected place.
I love this story.
It's incredible. There was a local fisherwoman in this Marabella community. This was a woman who worked tirelessly doing brutal physical labor in the ocean every single day just to survive and provide for her daughter.
Yeah.
One day, she looks at Meggan, who is drowning in her own emotional grief and slipping into destructive habits, and delivers this fierce, incredible wake-up call. She looks at her and says, "Get up, Naman. You've got opportunities I couldn't even think of." It was the exact jolt of harsh reality she needed.
That visceral intervention demonstrates why vulnerability isn't just a buzzword. It is an absolute necessity for survival. When you refuse to ask for help, you don't just isolate yourself. You actively deny other people the opportunity to connect with you, to share their strength, and to support you.
Right.
Asking for help isn't a sign of dependency or weakness. It is a highly courageous act of claiming your own worth. It is looking at the world and stating, I deserve to be supported in this moment.
And that wake-up call shattered the illusion that she could do it alone. But dismantling decades of trauma requires professional scaffolding, which brings in a crucial figure in her healing her therapist, Michael Adams. She went to see him. He gave her some incredibly hard truths about her behavior that she just wasn't ready to process. And she literally ghosted him for 9 months.
9 months.
Yes. But he was remarkably patient. He just periodically checked in on her, leaving space until she was ready to face the work.
Which is incredible.
It is. But I have to play devil's advocate here, though, for your benefit listening right now. 9 months of ghosting, and he's still checking in. Doesn't that risk becoming a crutch? Like, where's the line between a professional offering genuine support and a patient just slipping into codependency, expecting someone else to chase them down and fix them.
Well, that is the critical distinction we have to make when discussing healing. Genuine support empowers you to eventually stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
A good therapist or true friend offers you the tools, the insight, and a safe container to process your emotions.
Yeah.
But they firmly refuse to take responsibility for your happiness. Codependency is the opposite. Codependency is outsourcing your emotional regulation to someone else entirely. It's the mindset of, I am only okay if you fix this problem for me.
Right. Make it go away.
Exactly. Real vulnerability, which is what Meggan eventually embraced, is saying, I am not okay right now, and I need a hand to hold while I do the heavy lifting to fix myself. The therapist checked in to offer the hand, but he didn't do the lifting for her.
That makes total sense. And once you finally do the heavy lifting, once you accept the help and begin the arduous process of healing, you find yourself standing on this new, very fragile foundation. You have to aggressively protect it.
Yes, you do.
That requires implementing radical boundaries, intentional time management, and perhaps most surprisingly, forgiveness.
Because healing is not a cinematic one-and-done event where the credits roll and you are fine forever.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be, but it requires relentless daily maintenance. Understanding the intrinsic value of your own time and energy is the absolute first step in establishing the boundaries necessary for that maintenance.
And Meggan learned a foundational lesson about the value of time very early on from her childhood boss, Thomas Glazer. He ran a clothing brand where her mom worked. When Meggan was just 10 years old, he started paying her £50 a week to sort his invoices.
Which is a lot of money for a 10-year-old.
A fortune. But more importantly than the money, he opened her eyes to an entirely different reality. She visited his massive house, saw his private swimming pool, the tennis courts. She asked her mom why his house was so much bigger than theirs, and her mom gave her a piece of profound wisdom.
Yeah.
She said, "This is what I wanted you to see. It's the difference between working for somebody and working for yourself."
Oh, well.
It planted a seed about the immense value of retaining ownership of your own time.
And it is a lesson about self-ownership that her mother, Jeanette, tragically took decades to apply to her own emotional life.
Yeah, she did.
For the majority of her adult life, Jeanette poured her time, her profound love, and her financial resources into her abusive siblings. She was trapped in that childhood cycle of trying to win affection from people incapable of giving it, constantly being disrespected and drained in return.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. It wasn't until she was about to turn 60 that the illusion finally broke. She had a massive epiphany, realizing she had sacrificed her best years trying to preserve a fantasy of a family dynamic that had never actually existed in reality.
So for her 60th birthday, she gave herself the ultimate gift. She took her life back. She cut the abusive siblings off entirely and prioritized her own peace.
Good for her.
But the universe has a way of testing that peace, doesn't it? Years later, her father, Freddie, the exact same grandfather who looked at 4-year-old Meggan and told her he didn't love her, turns up at the local supermarket.
Oh my goodness.
He is completely unkempt, his wife has passed away, and he looks essentially homeless. Meggan is furious, which is entirely understandable given the trauma. But her mother makes a shocking choice. She chooses to forgive him, and she starts taking him grocery shopping every single week.
Which sounds crazy at first.
It does. But this time, the dynamic was completely rebuilt.
It was rebuilt because it was entirely predicated on boundaries. Boundaries are incredibly misunderstood in our culture.
They really are.
People often view them as acts of hostility or massive stone walls built to keep everyone out. But in reality, boundaries are simply instructions on how to love you safely.
Oh, I love that phrase.
Jeanette didn't let Freddie move into her house. She didn't open herself up to being abused again. She carefully controlled the access. If they were shopping and he started misbehaving or becoming toxic, she would simply look at him and say, "Right, I'm going now. You're not going to ruin my day." And she would literally walk away. She retained all of her agency.
And the fascinating part is that he actually respected the boundary. He looked physically rejuvenated just by having that limited connection. And her boundary ensured she was completely protected from his old toxicity.
Yeah.
It offers such a powerful reframe of what forgiveness actually is. Because, holding on to resentment is like hoarding barrels of toxic waste in your own living room just to punish your enemies.
Wow, yeah.
You're sitting there waiting for them to get sick, but you are the only one breathing the fumes and slowly dying from the poison.
That's so true.
Forgiveness isn't about inviting your enemies over for dinner. It is just finally calling the hazmat team to take the barrels away so you can breathe clean air again in your own house.
That analogy captures the mechanism perfectly. Society often conflates forgiveness with reconciliation.
Hmm.
Forgiveness is absolutely not about absolving the abuser of their terrible actions, and it certainly doesn't mean you have to allow them back into your life without strict restrictions.
Right, the boundary stays.
Yes, it is purely an internal process of releasing the stored emotional poison from the forgiver's own nervous system. It's coming to terms with the fact that the past cannot be retroactively changed, but aggressively refusing to let that past dictate your emotional state in the present moment.
To bring all of these threads together for you listening today, the journey Meggan Roxanne outlines is intense, but it is deeply universal. It begins with the painful recognition of how early family dynamics hardwire us for people-pleasing and the exhausting, devaluing currency of perfectionism.
It requires us to identify and tear down the ego that we build to protect our fragile inner child, forcing us to step out of the stagnation zone.
It demands the terrifying, nervous system shocking vulnerability of actually asking for help when we are drowning. And finally, it culminates in protecting your newly repaired heart with rigid, loving boundaries and the ultimate internal liberation of forgiveness.
And the most crucial thing to remember as you apply this to your own life is that this work is a lifelong, entirely non-linear process.
Yeah.
You will make incredible breakthroughs, and then you will take a step back and fall into an old habit.
And that's okay.
It is.
Yeah.
That isn't failure. That is perfectly normal human development. The psychological tools to start doing this repair work are already in your possession. The awareness is half the battle. You simply have to make the conscious daily choice to pick up those tools and use them.
Which leaves me with one final thought for you to chew on today as you go about your week. We spent a lot of time talking about rushing through life, feeling constantly behind because we haven't hit certain artificial milestones that society dictates.
Right.
But if society's timeline is completely manufactured, what if the parts of your life you currently look back on and consider wasted time or embarrassing failures or painful detours, what if they are actually the most essential, required chapters of your personal curriculum? What if your supposed delays are actually your exact destiny unfolding? It's time to stop limping. Sit still, take the weight off, and finally let the bones set.